You know, Paris Denard has got to be some kind of a brain-dead idiot. He appears regularly on the Roland Martin show, where Roland describes him as a Republican strategist. And that's got to be overly generous. He normally throws a hissy fit anytime Roland Martin or any of the other guests on the panel go after Donald Trump, principally because they're always asking what's Donald Trump's plan for black people, for schools, education, jobs, etc. They're always asking for a plan. And Mr. Denard is always stating that a plan is coming. And then he starts attacking people by stating that they won't support a plan. Well, most people want to see a plan before they want to indicate that they support it. I mean, you don't support something or buy something, sight unseen most of the time, especially from someone that you have serious doubts about. You're not buying a car sight unseen, from a used car salesman, because more times than not, he's going to give you or try to sell you a lemon. And that's exactly where we are right now. But in this particular case, Mr. Denard is going to defend Donald Trump regarding the immigration issue, and especially with the Hispanics in this country that heard Donald Trump last night basically say that you're all gone. Now, I'm going to play this clip from MSNBC, and Eugene Robinson is basically going to nail the thing, and you'll see the name of the female guest, and I don't know what her name is, but you'll get that when she's described. But she pretty much hits it on the head, and then Mr. Denard goes into hyper denial. Here we go.
Political editor for the Wall Street Journal, Paris Denard, a Trump surrogate and former advisor to former President George Bush, as well as Eugene Robinson, MSNBC political analyst and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist with the Washington Post. Good evening, everybody. Obviously, plenty to get into. We are in the thick of the real campaign, the general election, obviously the international trips. Gene, let me start from you. Your perspective here. Did Donald Trump win or lose out of these two appearances together?
I don't think it went well for him at all. I think he lost ground in a very serious way. The campaign right now should be about adding supporters. He has people, high-profile conservative Hispanics, who are leaving his campaign and making those kinds of headlines. That was the opposite of what he was trying to accomplish yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, some of those advisors resigning officially today, that made a lot of news. We're actually going to have one on Hardball. Paris, I want you to take a listen to sort of the two Donald Trumps you got in one day. Everyone understands diplomacy can involve nicer words or euphemisms, but this was head-spinning even, I think, for some diplomats to watch, and this was, again, the Trump campaign's choice. They didn't have to double book that hardline Arizona speech with the trip, but they did. Take a listen.
We recognize and respect the right of either country to build a physical barrier or wall on any of its borders. Cooperation toward achieving this shared objective, and it will be shared, of safety for all citizens is paramount. We did discuss the wall. We didn't discuss payment of the wall. That'll be for a later date. Are you ready? We will build a great wall along the southern border. And Mexico will pay for the wall. They don't know it yet, but they're going to pay for the wall.
Paris, as a campaign professional, why have those two messages run right into each other on the same day?
It's the same message. the message is the same on both occasions. When you are president of the United States, you've got to be able to go in different circumstances. One, be diplomatic and have a Q&A or have a press conference with a fellow head of state, and then be able to go to a rally, then be able to deliver a speech to your base, to your supporters, all in the same day.
But you see, the problem with that, Paris, is the speech to the supporters is not the exact same message, because to the supporters he says, I'm going to be so tough. I'm going to tell them how it's going to be. They're going to pay for it. That's one message. Then the very same day he goes down there and doesn't say anything, at least according to the Mexican president, about them paying at all, which seems like for something he's been promoting for a year, that would have been the time to bring it up.
Well, I think we are getting down into the weeds about one.
No, we're not getting down into the weeds. That was the thing that he built his damn campaign on, building a wall, and the Mexicans are gonna pay for it. That is the thing that's up there in shining, in shining letters on a marquee. Getting down into the weeds would be how they're gonna pay for the wall, okay? But the fact that they're going to pay for the wall is one of the two main talking points for Donald Trump, and that's what he's always pumping his crowds up by saying who's going to build the wall, and his crowd responds Mexico's going to, I'm sorry, who's going to pay for the wall? Mexico's going to pay for the wall is what he pumps his crowds up to say. So that's not getting down into the weeds.
Particular part about this illegal immigration issue, about paying for the wall. The greater point is that he put out a 10-point plan to curb this issue about illegal immigration. In addition to that, what we did not see on the diplomatic stage, what we did not see was Secretary Hillary Clinton go down there and make herself to be seen as presidential. One would think that...
That is such bullshit. Hillary Clinton has seen hundreds of foreign leaders. This is Donald Trump's first one. So, Paris Denard is a fucking joke.
A former Secretary of State would have jumped at the opportunity to go down and present her message to the Mexican people and the Mexican government with the Mexican president, but yet, and still she did not. Mr. Trump showed great leadership, great diplomacy, and great judgment in going and doing that speech, and then going to the American people directly in Arizona, my home state, and speaking to them about his 10-point plan to fix this issue of illegal immigration.
Gene Robinson, how about that? Does Hillary not have enough frequent flyer miles here?
I think Hillary Clinton has met a whole lot of world leaders, and she's done a whole lot of summits. So I don't think we need to worry about that. I don't think she has to convince anyone that she can perform in that setting. She obviously can. But back to your original point, no, those were two totally different messages, and the tones was completely different, and the content was different as well. There was this sort of hands across the Rio Grande aspect when he spoke with President Peña Nieto. He spoke not really in terms of America first, but the hemisphere first. In fact, he talked about hemispheric trade and keeping manufacturing in this hemisphere. None of that in the Phoenix speech, that's for sure. It was the Mexicans were bad again, and they're going to have to pay for the wall, and they're too dumb to know it yet. And by the way, the Mexican immigrants are committing crimes at just a historic pace and have to be kicked out. I mean, it was a hardline speech, and so that's those are his cards. And that's the way he's decided to play this hand.
Well, and one of the funny parts about that is there is sort of this macro meta conversation about what he's doing. So in the absence of policy details, which he himself, Donald Trump, has said aren't the most important thing to him, there's a lot of talk about whether this is hard or soft, tough or weak, and all the rest. Here he was in an exchange with Laura Ingraham about whether this hard speech, according to him last night, will have more softening later. Take a listen.
The line last week, you were softening on immigration, then you come out with a very specific, very pro-enforcement plan last night. Well, where's the softening?
Oh, there's softening. Look, we do it in a very humane way, and we're going to see with the people that are in the country. Obviously, I want to get the gang members out, the drug peddlers out. I want to get the drug dealers out. We get a lot of people in this country that you can't have, and those people will get out. And then we're going to make a decision at a later date once everything is stabilized. I think you're going to see there's really quite a bit of softening.
So what the hell does that mean? Okay, really, what does that mean? Does that mean that the people are going to get to stay in a legal format? Obviously, they're not pushing citizenship. So, what does softening mean in this case?
Dean Cummings, I mean, I cover this stuff. I know a little bit about immigration law. I have no idea what he's saying there. And I don't mean that rudely. Politicians sometimes are deliberately vague for various reasons. Diplomacy as well can be vague. But what is he talking about? And do you see a softening after what was such a hardline speech?
Look at Paris Denard's face. He looks like he's lost in the sauce. Jesus.
Well, I also am confused about precisely what is his policy now, because he's said so many different things over the last few days. One thing I think is clear, and that's the overall message that the Hispanic community heard based on our interviews with many people today, and that is he may call it soft, he may call it hard, he can describe his speech and his rally any way that he may wish to. But to them, the message is every one of you that's here illegally could now be deported. And we may not get to you first, we may not get to you to the end, but we're coming. That's the message that the Hispanic community got. How you characterize it, that's up to them. But I think that's a message that has driven Hispanic advisors away from his campaign, and it could narrow his path to victory, making Florida much harder than it might have been. I mean, this is a significant moment for his campaign and how they manage it going forward.
Yeah, and to your point, the policy balance you strike has got to happen in real time. You can't say, oh, we're gonna do massive deportations on a scale this country has not seen in decades. That's the current proposal on the table. And then later, I promise there'll be something humane after that. I mean, that just doesn't necessarily make internal consistent sense. Paris, I want to give you the chance to respond and also take a listen to Corey Landowski here and his view of who this speech was really targeting. Take a listen.
Look, I think Donald Trump's message tonight was the message that he started with back on June of 2015, which was America first. That's what he believes and what he is playing to. And if you look at the polling data, he's got about an 18-point lead in the demographic of white males who are voting in this election. They have a high propensity of voting, and so he's got about an 18-point lead on Hillary Clinton in that particular demographic. This speech is clearly geared at those individuals right now to make sure that they are there. He's locked them in for the election.
Lewandowski saying the key is locking in white males. Another demographic would be white female conservative pundits. I could show you Ann Coulter very happy with this speech, saying, I think I'll watch this speech every night before going to bed so that I will sleep like a baby. Paris, does this do enough if those are the only groups it's speaking to?
Well, I just disagree. I believe that Mr. Trump was speaking to the American people. He was speaking to, listen, Corey was the campaign manager and did a good job getting Mr. Trump to and through the primary. Manafort came on, Kellyanne is now there, and since they've been on, there has been a deliberate effort to have specific engagement with the African-American community and especially the Hispanic community. And I would say that it was continued engagement with both of those communities.
That's bullshit. He hasn't been trying to engage with anybody. He initially started by driving the Hispanic community away, and then he jumped in there retweeting white supremacist tweets regarding black people. He hasn't said a word, not a word, okay, as far as outreaching to blacks or Hispanics. So now, all of a sudden, after Kellyanne Conway comes on board, now all of a sudden the words African American can escape his lips. And just over the past couple of days, not even a week, but a couple of days, he quote unquote was trying to reach out to Hispanics. But that speech last night, yeah, he was speaking to the American people, and everybody got the message. The message is, I'm going to fuck the illegal aliens, and especially the Hispanic people.
This speech is no different. His policies are no different than what he campaigned on, what he said down in Mexico, and what he said in Arizona. The American people understand his position. The Mexican government understood, the Mexican president understood his position long before he invited him down there to go there. This was a good day for Mr. Trump. Liberals in the media, and you are upset that he had a good day.
Okay, and there he goes attacking everybody when he's on the losing end of an argument.
Upset? Do I seem upset? I'm not upset at all.
He looked presidential. He was presidential, and he showed extreme leadership. And the people of this country, especially those who live across along the Mexican border, Hispanics, Mexicans included, understand the problems that are lying on that border.
Right.
And they appreciate someone like Mr. Trump speaking to it and having the leadership and the courage to go straight to Mexico, speak to the people and to the government, and say, "I'm going to work with you." He's a negotiator. This is the first step, and it's a positive step, and he's going to win.
He damn sure didn't speak to the people. As a matter of fact, they kept him away from the people because his ass might have gotten assassinated down there if he was seen anywhere outside of where he was. And the Secret Service made sure that they got him in quickly and got him out quickly. And as far as leadership, he did take a gamble, because if I were that Mexican president, we would have been talking about that wall, and if he didn't say what I wanted to hear, that meeting would have ended right then and there.
So if you were here at the glass table with me in New York, I think you'd see I'm feeling good. I'm not upset about it. I'm enjoying it.
Did he give you tingly feelings up your leg too?
I want to give Eugene a chance to get back in. Eugene, the other piece of this is whether there's sort of a fantasy football style aspect to the way Donald Trump envisions his presidency, and Saturday Night Live famously made fun of that with the idea that you'd snap your fingers and everything would just happen. And yet, in the political math, there is some appeal to that, right? I mean, to the extent that he boils things down very simply, or says a lot of problems are other people's fault, or a lot of things will be handled by other people. Look, if you could prove that Mexico would pay for anything, it'd be great. If they wanted to pay for our school system, that would be great as a budgetary matter. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. So speak to the political path he's on here, trying to appeal to people.
Well, generally speaking, simple and understandable is good in politics, unless it's completely crazy, right? And so, Paris spoke of Trump's outreach to African Americans, which consists of screaming, what do you have to lose? Your lives are a living hell. What do you have to lose? That's not a good approach. That's never going to work. And similarly, I'm going to kick your aunt Belinda out of the country is not a great approach to Latino voters. It's just not. It's simple and understandable, but it's not going to work.
We're out of time. Paris, quickly though.
It's going to work, and it's working, because the American people appreciate the fact that he's speaking directly to them in language they can understand, instead of lying and trying to hide behind things like his Secretary Clinton's doing. It's going to work. He has 8% of the black vote percentage right now, which is ahead of what Romney got and ahead of what Senator McCain got.
Yeah, right. Anyway, maybe Paris needs to speak to those members of the Hispanic outreach that jumped ship this morning, because they heard the same words that you heard, and they didn't quite think that they were positive.